Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast. I'm John Romero of the Washington Post. It is week 13 of the NFL season, so for fantasy owners out there, it is perhaps the final week you have to try and punch your ticket to the postseason. For most leagues, the typical playoff format is weeks 14 through 16, so this is the final week of the fantasy regular season for many out there. I'm here to guide you to victory, or at least give you some advice that hopefully will help you in week 13. If you'd like to follow me or ask me for any advice on Twitter, my handle is @John_J_Romero. A quick recap of who I highlighted last week. First guy, very solid performance, Marshawn Lynch. I recommended playing him last week, even though he's kind of been very up and down throughout the season. He delivered with over 100 combined yards and found the end zone once. I recommended against Doug Martin. Sure enough, he did not do well last week, so hopefully you didn't have to rely on him. I was very high on Kenny Stills having a nice game, and while he did have about 50 yards, he was limited through much of the game and was putting up 0 points through 3 quarters last week. So kind of a thumbs down there. And then my long shot was Corey Clement, though I did say that after his recent run of games, he was kind of due for a dud, and he did not get a lot of touches, and that's kind of the danger of trying to go with someone like Clement. Has a great chance of making a big play, but is just getting few touches. So, what do we like in week 13? Well, let's see. Well, first up on the fringe starters list, we're going to touch base with Isaiah Crowell of the Cleveland Browns. Now, Crowell was picked pretty high at the beginning of the season, mostly because there's not a wealth of elite running backs, but he turned in a pretty solid year last year. So for those owners who made it through the first half season, which Crowell did not deliver what you expected, he now has 3 double-digit games in his last 4 weeks. So if you've made it through that first half season and you're still on the cusp of getting in the playoffs, well, you hopefully have been using him the last few weeks, and he's a must-start this week because he's facing the league's worst run defense in the Los Angeles Chargers. So there's not much more to say than that. Crowell is playing up to his potential now. Maybe too little too late for some of his owners, but for those of you looking maybe for even a daily play, but obviously if you own him in regular fantasy leagues, he's a great play this weekend. Next up on the fringe list is T.Y. Hilton. Now, Hilton has been a great fantasy player for the last couple of years. Led the league, I believe, in yardage last season. Obviously, he does not have Andrew Luck this year, and so expectations obviously dipped down as soon as we figured out Luck was not going to be returning. Now, Jacoby Brissett is better than most of the backups Indianapolis had. I had someone reach out on Twitter several weeks back, needing to know if advice on whether to trade Hilton away. I suggested no. It was still the right move given the players he was getting back. Was mostly just adding depth to other areas. Hilton did deliver after that a huge outing, I think a 30-plus point game, but has otherwise been quiet in other weeks. So it's kind of a wash as far as what his production has been, and certainly now as far as week 13, it's a brutal matchup for Hilton, and almost if you're just can't find any other options, you may have to go with him just because obviously he starts. All it takes is one play for Hilton to produce something big, but if you can help it, he only had a couple grabs. The first meeting against Jacksonville, Jaguars secondary has been very, very impressive, and I own Hilton in at least one league, and I just can't bring myself to put him in the lineup this week for fear that he just can't do much. And that's the advice I'm putting out here, is that T.Y. Hilton just can't trust him this weekend. Now, who do I like as a long shot play this weekend? My lottery ticket play of the week is Seth Roberts of the Oakland Raiders. Amari Cooper, very banged up, could be limited in this weekend's game against the New York Giants. And on the other side, Michael Crabtree is suspended for the weekend. So I think if you're really desperate, hurting that wide receiver 2, flex play, then a guy like Seth Roberts has tremendous upside in Week 13. Oakland obviously is doing its best to get into the playoff picture. if it can. And they got a great matchup against New York, who has obviously struggled all season. And, if you need to gamble on somebody, Seth Roberts has big upside. Now that is going to do it for this week of the Fantasy Forecast. I'm John Romero of the Washington Post. Follow me again on Twitter if you'd like, at John_J_Romero. Good luck to you this weekend, and we'll talk playoffs next week.